Well, we loved it so much last time we decided to come back to Farmhouse at Kedron again.
In the same shirts as well.
Yes, you probably guessed we've done both these episodes at the same time anyway. You'd have to be a genius to work that one out. G'day Shannon, how you doing?
G'day Kevin.
Yeah, good to be back and good to have another episode of Buy in Brisbane to present for your enjoyment. Thank you for all your feedback too. It's been absolutely fabulous, number of questions coming in. An invitation for you again to keep those questions coming in because we love to hear what you want to know about Brisbane because that's what we're all about. So any question at all about real estate, but keep that focus if we could on Brisbane. And doing that, our feature suburb is New Farm. Shannon, why have you chosen New Farm?
Yeah, well, New Farm's a special place for me because it's where I've got some investments and it's 2 k's north of the city and it has lots of green space, amenity cafes and river views and city views. So I've always loved that part of the area, not just to invest in, but to spend some of my weekends there. And so there's lots of Brisbane.
So Claudia from LJ Hooker at New Farm is going to join us to talk about a particular development in that area, Shannon?
Yeah, that was a great result. It was actually a property that I inquired on for some of my clients, but it was a beautiful Art Deco block of units on the best street of New Farm, one of the best streets of New Farm in Moray Street. And it'll be interesting to see not only some more details of that sale, but who the end buyer was and their plans for the future.
Okay, and we'll find that out in this interview, and that'll be coming up a little bit later in the show. We've got our regular questions, I mentioned at the opening as well. We've got a question on principal and interest only as well, and also agents refusing to answer questions. That's a question I quite often get on 4BC, really. It's, what does an agent have to answer? So we'll get your opinion on that. And as well, you're going to give us your tip?
Yes, we're going to be looking at things that investors overlook. So property mistakes can be very, very expensive. And these are the things that you perhaps should not be overlooking.
Okay, as a regular part of this show, we also have a look at a market focus, what's happening in the market. Interesting this episode, Shannon, that you've chosen to go to the airport. Tell me why you've done that.
Well, see, every city, the 2 biggest employers are the CBD and the airport. So the airport's really important to the success of a city and its state. So we're already well into the second runway and the developments out there. It's opening up other parts to China with more flights direct and also direct flights to United States. And Qantas are even thinking about not going through Dubai anymore, but back to the Singapore route using Brisbane as a stopover. So for those things means more money for the Sunshine State. And it's going to be really good for our economy and therefore our property investments.
Well, we asked our roving reporter, Brett Warren, to head on out there. He did that, and here's his report.
Hi, Brett Warren here, your trusted resource for the Brisbane property market. Well, fresh off the back of the expansion of the CBD, I'm continuing on the jobs growth theme. And recent information put out by the state government suggests that this Eagle Farm Pinkenbar precinct is going to be the fastest growing area outside of the CBD. And this is the airport precinct, where we're getting a second runway and a multitude of other things. I'm here today to talk to Rachel Crowley from Brisbane Airport Corporation about these changes. They're going to see jobs soar from 22,000 to almost 50,000 the next decade or so. I'm excited to hear what Rachel has to say, so let's go and talk to her now. Thanks a lot for your time today, Rachel. It's really nice to meet you. And I guess if you could tell us a little bit more about the headline act, I guess, which would be the second runway. What's that going to mean for Brisbane?
The new parallel runway here at Brisbane Airport is a massive project, not just in terms of being a really big piece of capital investment by our company. So it will make it, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest airport in the country in terms of runway capacity. When you think about it, Brisbane Airport itself, it's its own postcode, where 2,700 hectares of land, the largest capital city airport site in the country. So we've got this enormous capacity to build not just our aviation infrastructure, but also all of these supporting and allied precincts around the site. Brisbane Airport, we have a vision of this airport as being the number one choice for people as the gateway into Australia. But all of that depends on getting great direct services into the major sort of markets around the world. just today we had the inaugural flight in from Shenzhen in China with Hainan Airlines. Their inaugural flight today, that's the first direct service from Shenzhen into Queensland. That's a great service. Last Sunday we announced that we finally secured, after a lot of work, what we all call the jewel in the crown, and that's direct services from Beijing to Brisbane. The growth market of China is so huge for us. Last week, or the week before, China Eastern Airlines announced that they were increasing our number of services from Shanghai to daily in December of this year. So we've now got those key Chinese cities of Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, all covered with direct services to Brisbane. We also recently had the announcement, which is a brilliant one, from Qantas, that they will put another 787-900, the Dreamliner, base here in Brisbane. Alongside our Los Angeles service, there'll be another one. They haven't said where yet, but we've got our fingers crossed it'll be Chicago. And if we're able to have a direct Chicago service out of Brisbane, that will be an absolutely unique opportunity for people to get into those northeastern North America, Canada, USA market in one stop without having to go through Los Angeles or San Francisco or Dallas. And I think the one that's most exciting of all, that lots of people talk about, is the Auto Mall.
Yes, the Auto Mall, that's fantastic. That's one of my favourites.
We have a 50-hectare site just near the international terminal. Our very smart property team came up with, I think, a really good notion that this was the perfect site for, really for car retailing. In the middle of that will be a test track. A test track, not a racetrack. So when you're looking at the different cars that you might want to buy, you can test drive it on a track that's not in the middle of general traffic. So it's a really unique opportunity and a unique offering that we can have with a test track for people to test drive vehicles.
Yeah, it's a really interesting insight there, Shannon, from Brett. Did a great job. I just want to mention, I know you're dying to say something just before you do. That was a portion of his report. It was quite detailed. So we've actually put his full report on our website. You'll see it in Brisbane, so just go and have a look at that.
Yeah, interesting. There's also an auto test lane out there, so you can test drive your fast vehicles very fast.
Okay, you're going to give that a shot?
Oh, not for me.
Not for you. Okay, our cameraman might. He's a bit of a rev. He rides a bike.
Oh, right.
Okay, let's roll into the next part of our show. Our feature this week on New Farm. Claudia actually did a spectacular sale. You mentioned that, or a development. Let's find out a little bit more about that as we talk to Claudia from LJ Hooker in New Farm. Well, as a regular feature in the show, we like to talk about an outstanding sale, and of course this week we're focused on New Farm, so we'll take you there and talk about the sale of a property at 32 Moray Street, which was transacted by Claudia Marchand, who is from LJ Hooker in New Farm, and she joins me now. Claudia, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on that sale. Tell me about the property.
Well, that was a very special one because it's an Art Deco block of 6-bedroom apartments, 6 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. So a beautiful building with many of the features of the 1920, 1930. Beautiful building inside, outside, on a big block of land in a great location as well, top of Moray Street in New Farm. It is not easy for an investor to buy a block of units that is not going to be able to be transformed that much, being heritage listed. So it had to be somebody with a connection to our heritage, I guess, in Brisbane and in New Farm in particular.
Yes,
so we had a bit of work to do there in finding that special investors that has a relationship with that type of building.
We'll talk about that in just a moment, about the property itself. Those Art Deco apartments speak so much about that particular market. Is that what you like so much about New Farm? Is the style of property?
Absolutely. It's very French as well, so it's very close to me. We do have a lot of those buildings in France that we have kept. You can't demolish them. And I really do love this period. But what I like, it's also the mix. Like we have those Art Deco, and then we have beautiful houses on a big block of land with gardens, and then we have the brick buildings that were from the 70s, very Italian looking. So it's all mixed. It's a mix that I like.
Yes.
Particularly about New Farm.
Yeah. So New Farm, of course, has had a bit of a gentrification. It's been gentrified. It was very much a down market area, but as we so often see with some of these inner city markets, Claudia, they're just waiting to be taken up. And I would imagine this block, finding something like this in almost pristine condition is very, very hard to find.
It is absolutely a rarity. And a lot of people recognize that actually, and that buyer certainly did, but it's very rare. I think in New Farm, we have about 3 of these buildings left that are not strata titled. So eventually you could buy from the one owner, but as soon as it is strata titled, it's all over, because then you have to buy 6 apartments that are fully owned and deal with 6 owners, and that's definitely not an easy thing to do. So a rarity, absolutely.
Yeah, this type of property is just so full of character. It's all about New Farm. One can only hope that New Farm retains that wonderful feeling, some of these older blocks and older homes that are now being beautifully renovated. It certainly is a delightful area to live in. It must be wonderful to sell property and introduce that to people who don't know much about it, Claudia.
Absolutely. I love that part of my job. And because I live here as well, I can talk about New Farm forever. They have to stop me. Say, look. But yeah, I do love talking about New Farm, because I believe it's the only place in Brisbane where you can actually walk everywhere. You don't have to cross a big, huge, busy road. It's a very pedestrian sort of lifestyle, and it's very European.
And the fact that New Farm is a bit of a destination too, isn't it? I mean, once you get into New Farm, you're in New Farm. Does that actually help you? Does it help you capture that market, Claudia?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does, because it is a market in itself. It is a niche market. Not everybody is going to want to live in a sort of peninsula, but the people who like that sort of intimacy, I guess I can call it this way, they absolutely love it here.
Wonderful. It's beautiful talking to you, Claudia. I applaud you on what you've done there with that particular property and the work that you do too. You're very well credentialed and you've won a number of awards. So thank you so much for sharing some time with us today.
Pleasure, my great pleasure.
I can see, Shannon, why you got so excited about that development, a great development in New Farm with Claudia too, and a great result.
Yeah, Art Deco units are a little bit more scarce in Brisbane than perhaps the southern states, but the fact that they're kept and restored and made beautiful is really important.
Yeah, they have a great character about them. Having sold in New Farm for many years myself, I saw a lot of those, and it's actually surprising how big they are inside as well, Shannon, what you can do with them.
Have a really strong owner-occupier appeal, make for good investments, because people will pay extra for that lovely bespoke design and extra living space. So they really make for good investments.
And New Farm, of course, is one of the suburbs that has made Brisbane so livable. Let's move to our question segment. A couple of questions for you, Shannon. We'll put you on the spot here. No, we won't, because you've already got the questions. He knows the answers. But fire them in too. Just send them in through the website and we'll get them answered for you. A couple of questions. Chris in Wilston, great suburb, Wilston. I'm structuring a loan for an investment property and wondering why you think of interest only compared, what do we think of interest only compared to P&I? My broker is suggesting a cocktail, a bit of both. Is he just taking an each way bet? Yeah, good question.
Yeah, Chris, I think at the moment, interest only loans are right in the spotlight for banks. So they're trying to target speculative investors there. And so that might be a reason why your broker has suggested a bit of both. it might help get the loan approval across the line. I know in one of my loans recently, they suggested go principal and interest rather than having to get a valuation. So the principal and interest is not a bad strategy. Debt repayments an absolute guaranteed wealth strategy. So in some cases, it makes sense to pay down your debt. And in this time where APRA is really cracking down, I think it's okay.
Different strokes for different folks, really, isn't it?
That's right.
It depends where you are and what you're doing. Shannon, the next question comes from Michelle and Corinda, and this was a result of a segment you and I did on my show on 4BC recently. We devoted the show to the questions you should ask an agent, and you quite rightly pointed out to me at the time, and this will live with me forever, by the way, is that the questions you ask of a listing agent, you need to understand that as a buyer, they're actually representing the seller. So anyway, Michelle writes, I heard you guys talking on 4BC today about questions to ask an agent. I asked an agent once why they were selling, that is, I guess, why the people were selling, and he told me that it had nothing to do with me, it was private, and that he in fact would be breaching privacy laws. How important is it really, and how should an agent handle that, Shannon?
Yeah, I think you've always got to try and act a little bit innocent, a little bit naive. I like to think of Columbo.
As a buyer, you mean?
Yeah,
Yep.
I like to think of Columbo, the detective.
Yep.
So act a little bit silly and a bit stupid. We want to garner as much information as we can to get a sense of the negotiation position. He's right, he doesn't have to tell you. He has to tell everything particular to the property, whether it's had termite damage or whether the extension was approved. And definitely has to tell you 100% of that, but doesn't have to tell you the owner's circumstances. So, Michelle, next time, act a little bit more green and do it in a bit more of a roundabout way, and try and see if you can catch them off guard and to hand over some of the information that they're trying to protect.
A great negotiation strategy that Shannon's hinting on here, and probably what I do in a situation like this is maybe give something first and just say, look, I really love this property, I'd really love to own it. I'd just be interested to know if I can structure my deal to the seller so that it suits them. Would it suit them to have a quicker settlement? Are they looking for finance? You know, what's their motivation? Why are they selling? So in other words, couch it in terms of you want to give them something to get something back.
Yeah, definitely. Rather than just be on the prowl and looking for your own interests, which might get the agent and therefore the owner off guard.
Yeah, good point. Okay, that takes us on to your tip, Shannon. Your tip for this episode is?
Yeah, investors often overestimate the gains and underestimate the expenses. So with property, we've got expenses, and I think when it comes time to purchasing a property, don't underestimate those expenses. Like to buy a property sight unseen or without a building and pest inspection, without doing the right number of searches, is going to lead for very expensive mistakes further on. So make sure when you've got the purchasing and you've been given approval for, say, $500,000, that you've not underestimated all the expenses that go with the purchase.
Yeah, in fact, we've seen a little bit of press just in the last couple of weeks about how the banks are really clamping down on this, your knowledge of information when you go to get a loan. So it's critical you actually get all that together, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good broker can definitely help you with and get across so that you know what your purchase price is and what your loan amount are, because often they're two different things.
I think we've raised a couple of points here, Shannon, without clearing this with you first, but we should get a mortgage broker on, to answer some of these questions, because it's a critical thing. So we'll look at doing that in the next few weeks. Actually, that brings me to my next point, which is next week. Recently, Shannon, you hosted a function in your office, and you had as a guest speaker David Hinchliffe. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah,
David's former Deputy Lord Mayor and also a very successful artist. So I think with his knowledge of Brisbane and the town plan, and even with some of his beautiful artwork that we had displayed, he was one of our favourite guests so far this year, and well received.
You've got a great painting of his, which I think is just fabulous in the foyer, and I'm looking forward to catching up with David. David actually did that presentation, so we'll give you portions of that in next week's show and then give you the full package of that the same way we've done with anything we do with Brett Warren. Hey mate, fantastic catching up with you again. Thank you very much to the team here at Farmhouse in Kedron for having us again. We'll pick another location because these shirts are 2 episodes out. That's enough. We'll move on.
Thanks for having us, Farmhouse.
Good on you. Yeah, thank you, Farmhouse, and thanks, Shannon. We'll catch you in 2 weeks' time right here at Buy in Brisbane.
Baby, hit it.
Yeah, really interesting. French woman, okay.
Yeah.
With a French accent?
Yes.
A French accent?
Yes. She does.
Good, that's great. Right, we'll just do an outro to that.